protect us from this evil.
What is that?
Before kingdoms rose and fell, before miracles split oceans, before a shepherd stood before an empire, there was a cry that rose from the mud pits of Egypt, from the throats of a people forgotten by the world, but never forgotten by God. For 400 years, the Israelites served as slaves.
Keep moving! Faster! You must haul these stones before the sun sets!
Breathing dust, eating scraps, dying under the whips of men who believed themselves masters of destiny. Once, Egypt had welcomed them as guests, but fear twists even the strongest nations. And the Egyptians feared that the children of Israel were becoming too many. Fear became hatred, hatred became oppression, oppression became law. Their hands built monuments of stone, but their hearts carried wounds no monument could bury. Night after night, their prayers rose like smoke. God of our fathers, where are you? Have you forgotten us? Do you still see? Do you still hear? But heaven was not silent. Heaven was preparing a deliverer. Egypt was a world of wealth and brutality intertwined. Golden temples shimmered under the sun, and priests chanted in incense-filled halls, while outside, Hebrew slaves bent their backs under the weight of stone and fear. Pharaoh, the living god of Egypt, had grown paranoid. "These Hebrews grow too many," he muttered to his advisors. "If war breaks out, they may side with our enemies. We must control them. We must break them." So he issued one of the darkest commands in ancient history. Every Hebrew boy who is born, throw him into the Nile. Terror swept through the slave quarters. Mothers hid their infants in clay ovens, beneath bundles of reeds, even beneath the very mud they used to form bricks. Some nights, the wailing of mothers who had been discovered echoed louder than the whips of the taskmasters. But in one small home, a Levite woman held her newborn son close, her hands trembling as she pressed a finger against his tiny cheek. The baby's soft breathing was a miracle. His quietness was a blessing. But he could not stay hidden forever. For 3 months, she hid him, beating him when soldiers were far away, covering him when patrols walked by, whispering prayers over him every night. But there came a moment when the child grew too strong, too loud, too impossible to conceal. With a breaking heart, she gathered reeds from the Nile, lining them with pitch to keep water out. She placed her son inside the basket, her tears falling onto his face. She set the basket upon the river, where the current gently carried him away. The mother whispered one last prayer. "God of Abraham, if you've ever heard our cries, hear this one." The basket drifted through reeds and lilies, caught briefly in currents, and then floated toward the palace gardens, a place where destiny waited. Pharaoh's daughter, a woman raised among luxury and cruelty alike, walked along the riverbank, her handmaidens trailing behind her. Something caught her eye. A basket. Alone. Adrift. Curiosity tugged at her heart. She reached for it. She opened the basket and saw a Hebrew infant with tears sparkling on his cheeks. The princess felt something stir in her, a compassion, a boldness that defied her father's laws. "This is one of the Hebrew children," a handmaiden whispered. The princess shook her head. "No, this is my son now," and she named him Moses, "for I drew him out of the water." Moses grew in the palace of kings. He walked polished stone floors that echoed with the steps of royalty, and servants bowed as he passed. His tutors taught him mathematics, language, philosophy, and strategy. His mentors trained him in combat, the art of the sword, the stance of a warrior, the discipline of command. He learned to read the stars and to write in the hieroglyphs of the elite. He learned to wear linen robes and walk with the confidence of nobility. But he also learned something else, something that silenced him in ways no tutor could explain. He knew he did not belong. His skin carried the tone of the Hebrews. His features did not match the royal bloodlines. His heart stirred when he saw the suffering of the slaves. He learned to hide his empathy, to conceal his compassion, to maintain the mask expected of a prince. But each day, as he watched Hebrew men cry out from the lash while palace officials looked on with apathy, a battle grew inside him. Why am I here? Why was I saved when others were not? Who am I really? His questions remained unanswered until one fateful afternoon. Moses rode out in his chariot, inspecting the labor sites near the store cities of Pharaoh. The sun was merciless. Slaves collapsed from exhaustion. A taskmaster's whip cracked like thunder, sending fear rippling through the workers. Moses watched, anger rising. Then he saw a Hebrew man fall, unable to carry the load. The taskmaster struck him again, and again, and again. Something snapped inside Moses. He stepped forward, shouting, "Enough!" The taskmaster turned, recognizing the prince. But instead of stopping, he raised his whip once more. Moses' rage ignited. Years of identity conflict, years of suppressed compassion, years of unspoken questions all erupted in a single moment. He struck the taskmaster once, twice, until the man lay still in the sand. Breathing hard, Moses looked around. No one stirred. Fear washed over him. He dragged the body into the sand, burying it beneath the very earth that slaves had spent years shaping. But secrets buried in sand do not stay hidden. The next day, Moses returned, hoping to see gratitude from his Hebrew brothers. Instead, he found two Hebrews fighting. "Why are you striking your companion?" Moses demanded. The man replied, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Will you kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" The words hit Moses like a dagger. The news had spread. People knew. Pharaoh would know soon. He fled, away from the palace, away from the only life he had known, away from the guilt that now haunted him. He crossed deserts, his feet bleeding, his heart breaking, until he reached the land of Midian. Moses arrived in Midian exhausted, sunburned, and starving. His royal posture was gone. His sandals were torn. His voice cracked when he tried to speak. For the first time in his life, Moses was no prince, no leader, no warrior, just a man running from his past. He found a well on the outskirts of the land. Wells were places of rest and conflict, and Moses soon learned why. As he sat in the shade of a stone wall, 7 young women approached to draw water for their father's flocks. They worked quickly, laughing among themselves, unaware of the man watching them quietly. Then a group of shepherds arrived, rough and territorial. These men bullied the daughters of Jethro every day, forcing them to fetch water and then chasing them away so they could steal it. But this day, Moses stood. His heart, still raw from Egypt, could not tolerate injustice, even here, far from home. He stepped between the shepherds and the young women, his stance wide, his eyes fierce. "Leave them," he said. The shepherds laughed, until Moses moved. Though weakened by travel, years of palace combat training surged through him. He fought with a mixture of discipline and desperation, driving the shepherds away with a staff he grabbed from the ground. When it was done, the daughters stared in astonishment. Moses said nothing. He simply drew water for them, a silent act of kindness from a man who no longer knew who he was. When the daughters returned home early, their father Jethro asked, "How did you finish so quickly today?" "A man rescued us," one daughter said. "An Egyptian." Jethro raised an eyebrow. "Where is he? Why did you leave him? Bring him so he may eat with us." And so Moses found shelter, not in a palace, not among warriors, but in the home of a desert priest who saw humility in the man who once walked with kings. Moses remained with Jethro and eventually married his daughter Zipporah. He learned to tend sheep, to mend fences, to walk the quiet paths of the hills. Years passed. Moses became a father. He named his first son Gershom, "For I have been a stranger in a strange land." He said it often. He felt it always. But though Moses believed his story was over, God was writing a new beginning. It was an ordinary day, or so Moses thought. He led his flock beyond the wilderness toward the mountain of God, Horeb. The air was still, the sheep wandered peacefully. The desert was quiet. Then Moses saw it. A glow, a flicker, a flame in the distance. He approached cautiously. It was a bush, engulfed in fire. But the fire did not consume it, not a leaf scorched, not a branch curled. The impossible blazed before him. Moses whispered, "I must turn aside and see this great sight." As he stepped closer, a voice thundered, "Moses, Moses." Moses froze. His heart pounded. His knees trembled. All he could whisper was, "Here I am." "Do not come closer," the voice said. "Remove your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy ground." Moses slipped his sandals off, standing barefoot on sacred earth. "I am the God of your father," the voice continued, "the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob." Moses hid his face. He dared not look at the fire. "I have seen the affliction of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cry, I know their sorrows, and I have come down to deliver them." Moses' breath caught. "Deliver them? How? Why tell him?" Then God said the words that shattered his world. "I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of Egypt." The desert seemed to spin. Moses stepped back. "Who am I?" Moses whispered, "that I should go to Pharaoh? Who am I to bring the Israelites out?" God answered gently, "I will be with you." But Moses' doubts ran deep, deeper than this valley, deeper than the scars of his past. He stammered, "What if they do not believe me? What if they ask your name?" "Tell them," God replied, "I am who I am." "Tell them, I am has sent me to you." Still Moses trembled. "What if I cannot speak well? My tongue is slow. I am not a leader. I am not a speaker." God's reply was thunder and tenderness mingled. "Who made man's mouth? Who gives sight or makes blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, and I will be with your mouth." But Moses whispered the truth he feared most. "Lord, please send someone else." God's anger burned for a moment. Not the anger of fury, but the stern love of a father pushing his child into destiny. "Your brother Aaron will go with you. He will speak for you. Take this staff, for with it you will do my wonders." The fire faded, the voice softened, and Moses, the exiled shepherd, the broken man, the fugitive prince, walked down the mountain with trembling hands and a calling he did not ask for but could not refuse. Moses returned to Midian with urgency. Zipporah saw it in his eyes, a mixture of fear, awe, and destiny. "I must return to Egypt," he said. She did not question him. She simply gathered what they needed and prepared their sons. Moses loaded his staff, his cloak, his memories, and his burden. As they traveled, Aaron met him in the wilderness, sent by God. They embraced, brothers reunited by purpose. Moses told him everything, the bush, the fire, the voice. Aaron listened, his eyes widening with every word. "It is time," Aaron said. "Let us go." And the two brothers walked toward Egypt, toward the greatest confrontation in ancient history. Egypt shimmered as always, golden towers rising into desert sky, chariots rolling through grand avenues, slaves laboring beneath the sun. But Moses saw it differently now. He saw the shackles, the bruises, the silent despair. The Israelites stared at him, some curious, some bitter, some hopeful. Moses and Aaron gathered the elders of Israel. Aaron spoke the words Moses had heard from the fire. "The Lord has heard your cries, he will deliver you." Some wept openly, some bowed low, some dared to hope again. But hope is fragile when chains are tight. The next day, Moses and Aaron entered Pharaoh's hall. The air inside was thick with incense, power, and arrogance. Pharaoh sat upon a throne carved with lions, his eyes colder than stone. Moses stepped forward, feeling the weight of every doubt he had ever carried. Aaron spoke, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go." Silence. Then Pharaoh laughed. "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice? I do not know this God, and I will not let Israel go." Moses gripped his staff. "Israel is not yours," he said quietly. "He belongs to God." Pharaoh stood, his voice thunderous. "If I do not know your God, then your God will not command me." He dismissed them with a wave. That day Pharaoh increased the cruelty on the Israelites, forcing them to gather their own straw, yet make the same number of bricks. The people cursed Moses. "You have made us stink before Pharaoh. You have made our lives worse." Moses cried out to God, "Why have you sent me? Why have you allowed this? You have not delivered your people at all." God answered, "You will see what I will do to Pharaoh. With a mighty hand he will let them go, and with a mighty hand he will drive them out." Thus began the battle, not between Moses and Pharaoh, not between slaves and kings, but between the God of heaven and the false gods of Egypt. For centuries, Egypt believed its gods were invincible. Ra, the sun god; Hapi, the spirit of the Nile; Heket, goddess of fertility in the form of a frog; Geb, god of the earth; Apis, sacred bull of strength and wealth; Horus, falcon god of kingship; and above them all, Pharaoh, the physical embodiment of divine power. But now, a shepherd with a staff walked into their kingdom, carrying the voice of the true God. This confrontation was not merely political, it was cosmic, a spiritual war. Every plague was aimed directly at the gods of Egypt, to show Pharaoh, Israel, and the world that Yahweh alone is God. 1. The Nile turns to blood. Moses and Aaron stood before Pharaoh again. "Thus says the Lord, let my people go." Pharaoh's jaw tightened. No. Moses lifted his staff over the Nile. Aaron struck the water. The river screamed, it churned, it darkened, it thickened. The blue became crimson. The Nile, the source of Egyptian life, became a river of death. Fish floated to the surface. Crocodiles fled. The stench spread for miles. Priests prayed to Hapi, but the god of the Nile did nothing. Egypt dug holes along the riverbanks, searching for water like desperate animals digging for life. Still, Pharaoh hardened his heart. 2. The plague of frogs. A week passed. Moses returned. "Let my people go." Pharaoh refused. Aaron stretched his staff over the waters. The croaking began softly, then thundered like a storm. Frogs poured from the rivers, crawling into ovens, beds, and bowls. Royalty and slaves alike screamed as amphibious armies invaded every corner of Egypt. The goddess Heket, with the head of a frog, was powerless. Pharaoh begged Moses, "Ask your God to take away the frogs, and I will let the people go." Moses prayed. The frogs died, piling in heaps across the land. The smell was unbearable. But when relief came, Pharaoh changed his mind. 3. The plague of gnats. Aaron struck the dust with his staff. The dust transformed into insects, countless, swarming, biting gnats that covered men and beasts. Priests tried to duplicate the plague, but failed. They bowed before Pharaoh and whispered, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh's heart hardened still. 4. The plague of flies. God sent dense swarms of flies, not tiny irritations, but aggressive, flesh-tearing insects that filled houses, food, and bodies. But in Goshen, where the Israelites lived, there were none. For the first time, God drew a visible line. "My people and your people." Pharaoh begged again, then lied again. His heart remained stone. 5. The death of livestock. Moses warned, "If you refuse, the hand of the Lord will strike your cattle, horses, donkeys, camels, and sheep." The next day, the animals of Egypt collapsed across fields and barns. Apis, the sacred bull god, could not save a single beast. In Goshen, every animal lived. Still Pharaoh refused. 6. Boils and blisters. Moses took a handful of soot. He tossed it into the air in front of Pharaoh. The soot became a burning dust that settled on skin, causing boils to erupt on every Egyptian. Even the priests, the most purified men in Egypt, could not stand before Moses. Their bodies blistered. Pharaoh gritted his teeth. His pride was stronger than his pain. 7. Hail like fire. Tomorrow, Moses warned, hail will fall like Egypt has never seen. Some Egyptians feared God and brought their servants and cattle indoors. Others mocked the warning. The sky turned black. Thunder cracked the heavens. Hail the size of stones fell, destroying trees, crops, people, and beasts. Lightning darted and danced across the fields. Fire mingled with ice, a storm defying nature itself. In Goshen, sunlight shone. Pharaoh begged for mercy, then hardened himself again. 8. The locusts. Pharaoh's officials finally broke. "How long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go." But Pharaoh called Moses back and tried to negotiate. Moses refused. God's command was absolute. A wind rose. It brought with it a black veil across the sky. Locusts. They covered Egypt so thickly that the ground could not be seen. They devoured every plant left by the hail. There was nothing green left in the land. Pharaoh yielded, temporarily, then hardened. 9. The darkness. 3 days of darkness. Not the darkness of night, but a darkness so thick people could feel it. No lamps worked, no fires burned. People could not see one another, though standing inches apart. But in the homes of Israel, light. Pharaoh screamed, "Leave, but you must leave your flocks behind." Moses replied, "Not a hoof will remain. We do not negotiate with God." Pharaoh erupted, "Get out of my sight. If I see your face again, you will die." Moses turned to him, eyes sharp. "You will not see my face again." The court trembled in silence. The battle had reached its final act. 10. The oncoming judgment. God spoke to Moses, "Yet one more plague I will bring upon Pharaoh, then he will drive you out completely." This final plague would not be a warning, not a sign, but judgment. Moses spoke to the Israelites, "Take a lamb without blemish, kill it at twilight, paint its blood on your doorposts. Inside, eat the lamb in haste with bitter herbs and unleavened bread. For this night, the Lord will pass through Egypt." The people listened in reverent fear. Blood smeared on doorways, children held close, fires burning quietly in the night. The Israelites waited. 11. The death of the firstborn. At midnight, Egypt awoke to screams. The judgment fell swiftly, silently, terribly. In every Egyptian home, from the palace to the slave quarters, the firstborn died. The heir to Pharaoh's throne, the children of soldiers, the sons of servants, even the firstborn of livestock. But wherever God saw the blood, he passed over. The cries of Egypt rose like thunder. Pharaoh collapsed, broken. He whispered, "Go, leave us. Take your flocks, take everything, just go." And so Israel prepared to leave the land of their slavery, not as fugitives, not as wanderers, but as a nation. They marched out of Egypt in droves. Families carrying kneading bowls, children clinging to their mothers, elders leaning on staffs, young men gripping the hope of freedom for the first time. It was a river of humanity flowing through desert and memory. God himself guided them, a pillar of cloud by day, a pillar of fire by night. But freedom terrified them. They asked Moses, "Were there no graves in Egypt that you brought us out to die in the wilderness?" Fear is a hard chain to break, sometimes heavier than iron. But Moses reassured them, and the journey continued. Pharaoh, meanwhile, stared at his empty cities. His pride, stronger than his grief, rose again. "What have we done? We have let our slaves go." He summoned 600 chariots, the elite force of Egypt, and pursued Israel with rage burning in his chest. The ground shook as the army thundered across the desert. Israel turned and saw death approaching. Women screamed, men trembled. Children buried their faces in their mothers' robes. The Red Sea lay before them, deep, vast, and impassable. Behind them, the greatest army in the world. The people cried out, "Moses, why did you bring us here? We will die." Moses lifted his staff. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled. "Do not be afraid. Stand firm. You will see the salvation of the Lord." God spoke to Moses, "Lift your staff, stretch your hand over the sea." Moses obeyed. Then the impossible began. A wind rose from the east, a wind so fierce it shook the sea itself. The waters trembled, parted, lifted into walls towering higher than any palace, roared like lions chained by invisible hands. A path of dry ground stretched before them. An ocean split in two. Israel stood in awe, then moved. They walked through the impossible. Children touched the glowing walls of water. Elders cried silently. Mothers held infants close. Men walked with renewed courage. Behind them, the Egyptian army entered the sea. God looked down from the pillar of fire and threw the army into confusion. Chariot wheels broke, horses panicked, soldiers staggered. The Egyptians screamed, "Flee! The Lord fights for Israel." When the last Israelite stepped onto the far shore, God spoke, "Stretch your hand over the sea." Moses raised his staff once more. The walls of water collapsed with a roar that shook the earth. Not one Egyptian survived. The sea returned to calm. Israel stood on the shore, their faces lit by the rising sun. They were free, truly free. For the first time in their lives, they sang. On the far shore, Moses looked at the waters that had swallowed Egypt's pride. He thought of his past. The palace, the guilt, the regrets, the exile. He thought of the burning bush. He thought of the plagues. He thought of the moment God split the sea. He whispered, "Who is like you, O Lord, majestic in holiness, doing wonders?" The people celebrated with tambourines, dancing, singing, shouting in joy. But Moses felt something deeper, a calling beyond victory, a purpose not yet finished. Ahead lay Sinai, the covenant, the law, the wilderness, the shaping of a people into the chosen nation of God.